Ready?
Excuse me, he's ready to get
Ready?
started.
I'm gonna make you
You're
sit
gonna
up here
make
and
us
talk. Okay. I'm gonna welcome everybody to the March 3rd, 2020 meeting. The official time is 6:03. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I need approval of the agenda.
So move.
Approval, have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
It's our pleasure tonight to have our invocation and pledge done by our very own Michael Woodard at the building maintenance.
Always good to see you guys.
Always got a smile on your
Always
face.
good to be seen. Amen. That is right. Father, we're so graciously thankful for all your blessings. And sometimes your blessings, Lord, are ignored because we're so busy doing our own thing. But tonight we want to slow things down. We want to stop, look, and listen, and allow you to intervene and be the center part of everything that's said and everything's done, everything voted on and agreed on tonight, Father. We should commit it entirely to you. We thank you for life. Jesus, you said that not only do you give us life, but you give it more abundantly. So we want to walk in that abundance of understanding tonight. That, Father God, we can be on the same page in everything that is said. That we'll agree to disagree and we'll work for the betterment of the Jones County and everyone here. And Father God, I thank you for the Board of Commissioners. I thank you for all of us who are here tonight. And we should humble ourselves in your presence. And we submit ourselves to your will. And we ask you this and even more in Jesus' name we all say, Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, we've got a planning and zoning tonight with every planning and zoning. If anybody here is in opposition of this planning and zoning request, you will have an opportunity before the vote is taken to speak on the opposition. But this time we'll turn it over to Mr. Petrowski.
Chairman, our only item this evening is a request by Aubrey Tharp to allow a trucking depot to be established at 2820 Gray Highway. That was site of the mobile home sales lot that was at that location, kind of close to the gas station on the corner of Joycliff Road. Mr. Tharp has a tenant that would like to locate at this location, operating his trucking company there, and then also allowing some other people to park their trucking vehicles on this property. Planning Commission has recommended approval of this request.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Petrowski? Is the representative from Mr. Tharp here like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Lance Souter. I'm Mr. Tharp's son-in-law. We have an opportunity to lease this property out to a gentleman that wants to use it for a truck depot. He's going to actually dispatch freight trucks from the lot. As my understanding, mainly it will be for parking. I don't foresee them using it for loading and unloading freight or maintenance of vehicles in my terminal.
Any questions, Ms. Souter? None?
That was going to be my concern about maintenance and just torn down wrecked vehicles. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to business on Gray Highway.
Absolutely. Is it
Motion to
anybody-
approve.
Second.
Wait. Is anyone here in opposition to this request tonight? No opposition? I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I second the motion to approve the conditional use to allow truck depot on Gray Highway.
Any more discussion? None. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Podesta. We move on to consent agenda approval for the minutes. We had a work session on February 18th, 2020. We had the third Tuesday, February 18th of 2020, and also an executive session on February 18th of 2020. Have y'all had an opportunity to look at minutes? If so, I look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. We have a second.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We moved to new business. The sheriff is at a funeral tonight. He regretted, he asked to have his two items moved to the next meeting. We'll move on to 3 on new business, and that would be award bid for 15-ton HVAC unit. Mr. Risner?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and we also have Donald White here with us. As you'll recall, this is a replacement of a unit over at the library that was not replaced during the construction project, and this will be funded with state library funds. So no county funds involved with this transaction. They just asked for it to go through our normal purchasing processes. So we've put this out for bid. We received a total of 6 bids, and I'll turn it over to Donald at that point and be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Yeah, we actually come to one certain contractor that went over and beyond. Lisa felt like, I felt like, Greenwise, wasn't it?
Green and Associates.
Green Associates. They've been in business a long time.
They really went over and beyond. They told us that they felt like, you know, some of it might have been return issues, but their bid was submitted to take care of everything where we would never have to worry about it again. I think their bid, what was their bid quote?
It was 19,504.
19,504. They were second. And the lowest bid was, what was it?
Middle Georgia Mechanical, it was 16,724. One thing that sort of in reviewing these that differentiates the two is in the specifications we asked for an EER rating, which I think is the large unit equivalent of a SEER rating, dealing with the efficiency of the unit. As best we can tell, there was no EER rating for the low bid unit. The second contractor did have an EER rating attached to his. I think we had requested 11 in the bid document. His was 12, I believe, but the other unit didn't have one at all. So I think that was something that differentiated between the two.
The other difference is the one was the train unit, the higher was a train unit, the other was a carrier. You know, nothing runs like a train, but that's opinions. Everybody's got their own, you know. Anyway, we're just looking to see if we can get this approved so we can get their situation resolved over there.
Commissioner Martin, you got a question?
No, absolutely. Did you say the low bid was the carrier?
The low bid was a carrier.
That's impressive because carrier is typically top of the line.
So,
My train, I'm gonna have to argue that point, because train is known to be more expensive than carrier.
Train generally is more expensive than the 2 unit.
I guess, you know, again, I've seen them in more commercial installations. Even though we had the train facility here, I've seen more carrier.
Right.
I think even in our school system, it's carrier, right?
I'm not familiar with the school system side, but.
Okay. I mean, just
I
might
know
be.
pretty much countywide, we use a lot of train stuff.
Okay. All right. So, just to be clear, you want to go with 19.5,
I would like to, yes.
$2,800 more,
Right?
just because the SEER rating wasn't included.
Because the probably the 4 hours they spent over there going in the attics and, you know, measuring pipes and the testing process that they did, that they didn't charge us for, just to make sure their quote is gonna do what we're asking it to do.
So they're gonna change some of the returns, is what they're talking about doing?
It wasn't specified in the bid, but what is specified has gotta fix our problem over there.
Right.
So it's got to, what's happening over there is this unit is building up condensation. They say it's a drain issue, so we got in the bid package to lift it off the floor. Okay, so that way they can put a P-trap and all that in there.
Right.
But they were under the assumption that their 14-inch returns should have been 16-inch returns. I will clarify that. Let me clarify that to get it accurate. But
But the carrier didn't give you your,
anything in that avenue neither.
no, as far as what we requested.
Right. Yeah, I think there was some language in that said it didn't qualify, that unit didn't qualify for an EER
that what you-
rating.
Yeah, I looked the model numbers up on them, and the carrier actually says that this model does not meet ASHRAE 90.1 for minimum EER requirements. So it doesn't even meet Department of Energy, 2018 Department of Energy minimum standards. So which tells me it's a lower quality, which is why
That's where the difference in money is.
price was
Right.
We're not comparing apples to apples, I don't think. If we're-
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why we asked for that certain rating.
Is that in my package somewhere? Did I miss it?
Oh, I just looked up the model numbers and printed them off, but I can show you.
No, I
Feel a little left out.
no,
I don't have it either.
Oh, this is
No.
my own homework. I'll be glad with it.
no, I reached out to Commissioner Kitchens because of his experience doing these kind of things and asked him to look at those and
Okay.
see if he could tell the difference between the two.
While I look at this one.
Well, see, he was sitting at the desk while I was driving down the road. He told me, he said, I'm gonna look it up. And
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. But go ahead, like you were about to tell us something.
Yeah, we're, also checked the references of both, and of course, they both checked out both companies. Of course, they're probably gonna give us their best customers anyhow, but either way, they said, you know, they were reliable.
Well, Train does meet it, but that one doesn't, does it?
Oh, so you were sitting with them, so, okay.
I won't sit with him, I just had, there's 11-2.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Not meet minimums right there, there's,
Yep.
there's where your money difference is.
I
One's
got you.
12.4 and one don't meet the standard.
That makes the difference because you got a more, what's the,
More efficient.
right, efficiency rating.
And just for the record, I'm carrier over train.
Me, for the two records, I am too, but if it don't meet the requirements, we don't want the same problem we're having now, it not working correctly.
Right.
Any more discussion or questions?
That's what y'all want to do, okay.
And I will verify before we give them the go-ahead that that's replacing anything that needs to be placed on the others.
Sure.
We told it had to be in the specs, new test and balance, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Rob.
New test and balance.
Sure.
And all I'm doing, so.
All right, well, is that a motion?
I said if that's what y'all want to do, I'll support you.
Okay.
I'm a carrier guy personally.
Well, I am too, but I'm looking at one that don't meet what we asked for and one that does.
Yeah, I think this is one of the times that it's unfortunate that we didn't have apples and apples to compare, because I think if the prices would have been closer, had we been both looking at a 12 and a half SEER unit.
We asked for it, they just didn't provide it. We called for an 11 EER in the bid document.
And we didn't get it.
Well, and that's part of the bid process to, you know, get the job, you rate as low as you can.
Right. Commissioner Kitchen, you wanna, if I got a motion on the floor?
So your recommendation is Green and Associates for 19,504?
Correct.
All right. Based on the EER rating, I make a recommendation that we'll go with Green and Associates for $19,504 for the installation of the HVAC unit at the library.
Second.
A motion, you got a second?
Second, yeah.
Oh, okay, making sure. Any more discussion? None, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Right.
Thank you.
Also, there's gonna be some more stuff coming up that the library board's gonna pay for. Curving, completed curving,
That's great.
and, also we have an awning put around one of the doors down there. The library board's gonna take care of that. So.
All right, great.
Carrier unit was the more expensive unit.
Thank you.
May I ask you, the
No, no,
sheriff's
no.
department,
The train
item
was
1
the
and
most
2,
expensive.
is he placing that on the March 17th agenda? Okay, so there's resolution to 1 and 2. Let's have a motion to postpone agenda item number 1 and
I was
2
getting
to the
ready to-
March 17th agenda.
Right. He ended up, he's at a funeral right now.
Okay.
Commissioner Robertson's at the same funeral.
Let's just, instead of just saying we're gonna continue.
Sure,
Let's have a
absolutely.
motion to
That was gonna be
postpone
my next question. You leave
agenda
my mind.
item number 1 and 2 to the March 17th agenda.
Motion to postpone item number 1 and number 2 under new business until the March 17th meeting.
A motion.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. You're gonna keep us straight.
That's
We're
right.
gonna get this, I promise you. We have approval to replace a wrecked truck. Mr. Pelkey?
Good evening. Toward the end of last summer, one of our trucks was involved in an accident, going to Ferguson Supply. He was sitting at a light, and he got hit from behind and got pushed into the vehicle in front of him, so it caused damage. And of course, the truck was a 2008, and they just totaled it out. And Louis said that the check was being cut today from the insurance company for $5,664. And I'm just asking the board if we can get your approval to replace that truck through the state marketplace.
Have you already gotten some prices to?
Well, I can get the prices.
Sure.
Through the state marketplace.
Well, where are we gonna take the remainder of the money? Because I don't think we can get one for 5,000. And if we can, I'm happy, but.
Well, see, my budget seems like we were gonna do the other trucks.
Okay.
My second question is, what's he been driving since then, if it's been totaled since last June?
We've been doing the best we can with what we had. Just waiting on the check, and then it was long, just took forever.
That's been
Yeah.
middle of the summer, wasn't that happening?
Right, so if you,
Didn't it sit down at H&H for the longest time, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it was,
So is this a meter reader, or is it a mechanic?
No, it's more of a maintenance team truck now. Yeah, it's been a little tight not having it on.
you know, I'm asking the question because if they've been operating, you've been operating without it for 6 months, what's the need?
Well, if there is a need, I mean, we scramble, if we want to take a truck offline to go get it fixed, it's like I'm juggling guys who we're gonna put with who to make ends meet. And you have to figure, we got a maintenance team, we have guys to check lift stations, meter reading, plant operations, and so, us guys that are on call. It's been a challenge.
Max, each of your maintenance guys and meter readers, they're assigned a truck, and then you have a couple of spares,
Yeah.
which is common in a fleet, because if you got one down, you don't just sit there, you got,
you know, we've got, I'd like to, the next meeting, we've got some more vehicle requests coming up. You see the sheriff's got one that, I've been actually talking with different department heads, seeing if there's any kind of way to repurpose some of these trucks. Maybe, I think Public Works has got a couple with 250, 300,000 miles on them that all they do is use for grass cutting. It maybe we could repurpose some of the, I think you've got a couple with 150.
Actually, I've got an F-250 in '98 that the engine heads need to be redone on. Basically, the engine's locked up, so I'm just kind of, I'm just debating, do I sink the money into such an old truck, or do we?
That older truck, I'd say no.
what was the mileage on the one wrecked?
It was about 250. Most of my trucks are between 250 and 270 right now.
Repurposing might have, because I think Public Works said they've got several in that 250, 270 range also. How far are we from having I know you got a lot to do, but how far are we from having something put together on a replacement policy?
So right now, I have sent out to all the department heads a draft policy for them to review. I've also asked them to compile maintenance costs for their vehicles in their departments. And hope that's due back to me in about 2 weeks, as I recall, and then should have that ready for you at the beginning of April.
Well, I'm standing where we were, that we weren't going to buy anything new until that came.
Right.
And if we've been operating, Jeffrey, for 6 months without it, I'm not trying to inconvenience anybody, but I'm going to prioritize it based on need and actual usage. So, I'm going to stand on the policy. I'm not doing that.
But in the meantime, if you could, the department heads could get together and talk about possibly repurposing some of the trucks. Idea I had is, we've got, Mr. Graham's got a couple of those rescue trucks that he's wanting to replace, and a couple of them are high mileage, some of them aren't as high, but Public Works said their tire truck, they needed another tire truck. I asked them, how about repurposing one of those one-ton rescues as their tire truck? If we're, it's a one-ton, and at least look into it if we can repurpose some of these things. If you got $150,000 mile rescue unit that can be repurposed for a tire truck,
Right.
that would save, a big time, because I think we've got a $300,000 rescue truck now on that, in that odor forward, so. You think the 1st of April, we can have something that we can sit down and put a plan together as far as what we need to replace?
Yes.
But, and in the meantime, like I said, if you got, I would work with Mr. Risner's, like on that older truck with a locked up engine. I definitely would look long and hard at that older truck before I, spend that kind of money. Cause we've got an engine we just lost in one of our, roll-offs that, 3 years ago we rebuilt. It went out this week. They're wanting $30,000 for the engine. So that's something we need to.
With the study that Jason's doing, would this be a good opportunity to look into what a leasing program would be compared to something like this, that, where we could get, every 3 to 4 years refreshing of vehicles, and the maintenance part would be handled, and
Right.
you could really do away with
Right.
something like that.
I'm open to any kind of idea that would better what we're doing now.
Do we have an idea of actually how many trucks we own and are out there?
I'd have to go look and see we do have a good count, because every year for insurance purposes, we revisit that list and update it, and so we've got a good inventory of vehicles.
50, 100, 150?
All total, I think there are probably over 200 vehicles on that list.
Just like one for every employee. Okay.
Um,
I'm just saying.
If you're talking about, we're talking about fire stations too, so you've got
Right.
4 or 5 per, 3 or 4 per
Right.
station. You're looking
Yeah.
at, 40 or 50 vehicles there
Yeah.
that are not driven daily, I
Right,
bet we
right.
got some vehicles that don't have many miles on, but they may be 20, 30 years old.
I understand.
And just like the sheriff, theirs are more hours than miles, because those trucks those cars don't get shut off from the time somebody's in them till that 12 hours later. So it might not get 200 miles, but it's got 12 hours on that engine.
Oh, I understand.
And I would support that, Jeffrey, when you bring it back in the April one, because I do think we need to, even though it's got 250,000 miles on it, I think if there wasn't a need for the truck to begin with, we shouldn't have bought it. So I think if it was totaled out in a wreck, the need was already determined. Now whether he can do without it, another one can be put into a spare. If you've bought a new one and can be put in a spare, those are the kind of things that we need the department heads to come forward with and kind of work with. But I don't know. I don't really think putting it in the same boat with high mileage vehicle somebody's asking to replace versus one that was totaled, that was actually operating and in the fleet operating. So I do separate them a little bit, but I do support Commissioner Martin with we've turned down a couple until we get this thing. I think we're gonna stick with that until we really get it.
That way we're doing it like we, go full circle with the plan. That way when we make the decision, we've got a plan in place. Hey, thank you very much.
So can we have a motion to postpone till either the April 7th or 21st meeting? Whichever one y'all want to do.
We're probably, the first, or you wanna?
April the 7th or April the 21st?
And I think probably the first meeting in April.
Motion to postpone the replacement of the wrecked truck in the water department until the April 7th meeting.
Second.
Second. No more discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. No old business, department head? No, you wanna start tonight?
Yes, sir. I just want to go back to the situation that was sent out to all of us as far as the truck. What I got in our department, we're gonna try to do is, we're gonna take the year, the mileage, the amount that's been spent on the truck, and I had Marilyn go back and pull the NAD value of that and add that a line on there as well. So I know, we know kind of what we're looking at across the board, at what it's worth, you know. Just figured that might add to what we were trying to do to help the process, so. But, yeah, things are good in maintenance, we're rock and roll, just wish it quit raining.
That's it. Mr. Pelkey?
Yes.
In River North, or this station number 8, this is the old station that was never replaced. The station, we've had a lot of issues with that particular unit. The suction line and discharge line keeps wanting to come apart. This is really old, 45 years old. I know we've had issues with the land acquisition to put a bigger unit in there. My suggestion would be, and I just want your suggestion on it, is to look into getting a price for a Smith and Loveless unit that is basically the same, it's the same unit that's in there now. Over the years, the Smith and Loveless units, they really haven't changed the design of them, so the dimensions of it are basically the same, so you wouldn't have to deal with land acquisitions, but we would have a new unit in there. I'd like to see if we could get some prices on what a Smith and Loveless unit, a new Smith and Loveless unit would be to set in there without having to deal with land.
Does the new unit address current and future needs?
Yeah. Yeah, but this is, this is the unit that was never replaced.
Right.
The original. And it's, the piping and the threads on it is just not there anymore.
But the reason why I'm asking that is because why would we need land acquisition if a similar size unit would address current and future needs?
Well, I mean, this is what we've been dealing with. I guess the Gorman rough pumps that we have in there now are bigger units.
Okay.
So the fencing would have to be expanded out, therefore we needed more land.
Right.
Well, a Smith and Loveless unit is very small, and it would just fit right where the old one would be, and we wouldn't have to deal with land issues.
Because I've made multiple contacts and.
But this seems like a solution we could have had a long time ago.
Right.
Smaller unit, greater efficient.
But
Well,
I ain't got anywhere on that, and land acquisition. One minute he's game, the next minute he's, so I just.
Okay.
Now, I know the Smith and Loveless units are gonna be more expensive than the Gorman Rupp, but, they're just a workhorse. Now, I absolutely love them. And they haven't changed the size, the dimensions, or anything. It's basically the same size over the years. So to me, it's just like a no-brainer, just let a new one in.
But if we're not acquiring land and there's a little more here and less land here, we might be in the same boat. We might even be better to get the Smith and Loveless.
We've been fortunate not to have it fill there because we've been able to catch it early because it's a relatively low-flow station, so it takes a while to fill up. So I'm just, I don't like living like that.
And it sits on just a little bitty,
Yeah, it's just a square unit.
yeah, I mean, it's not that big an area.
No.
And no offense, I mean, it's in Sam's district, but for public and highest best use, this is a no-brainer. If I had to be a really nasty guy and talk about that evil word, eminent domain, this is one of those necessities. But that's on you, buddy.
All right, be something to look at one of the upcoming meetings.
Okay.
I would hope we'd go ahead and get some prices and look at it.
Sure.
And even the value of the land, if we don't want to buy it.
Sure.
We're not gonna domain it.
All right, thank you. Mr.
Not in
Ritter?
the election year.
Mr. Chairman,
That'd be perfect right there.
Commissioner Pitts asked me to mention one thing. He wasn't able to be here tonight. We recently got our AARP age-friendly designation. There's a grant program that's open to those communities, and Commissioner Pitts is interested in applying for a grant to enhance the community garden at the senior center. They have a couple of areas now that they're able to use, and he wanted me to, I don't have anything formal to present tonight, obviously, but he wanted me to, just throw that out there as an idea for that grant, to add some additional plots there and to add some fencing, to create more of a community garden there at the senior center.
I got to say something humorous. He wanted to put in some food plots, Commissioner Kitchens. I said, are you deer hunting or are we planting a garden? I said, I think you need some elevated gardens. He said, that's what I'm after. But he asked,
Raised bed garden,
raised gardens. He said, well, I need some more food plots. And I said, are we going to start deer hunting?
Food plots.
So,
You tell them corn's legal now.
so I had to have a laugh on that one. But thank you, because I had the same thing. But that all?
If that's okay, I'll put something together and bring it back to a future meeting for y'all to.
Because there's
to
a deadline
consider.
on that, isn't it?
There is, yeah.
Right. All right. We got anything tonight?
I'm just fortunate to work with a great board.
And you keep us straight.
Every meeting, I'm reminded of how good this board is.
Great.
You got other business?
I
You got to compare us to somebody.
I keep an eye on other counties, and I think it is not lost on me.
And I'm blessed. I've got a lady on each side of me that
What a
keeps
good
me,
board
that
I
keeps
work
me
for.
straight. And then when they slow up, I got one right there would let me know that you
Yeah.
got a meeting that night.
It's
Anything?
amazing what happens in some other counties.
Citizen comments. Anybody like to come forward tonight? Wow, it's gonna be quiet. I need there's no, how about commissioners' comments? Commissioner Martin?
I'm happy that we're looking at solar finally. I think it's long overdue. I hope that not only does the county get involved, but the city and the Board of Ed. I hope they can take advantage of our brownfield, because I think that's a great opportunity. After the meeting, talked with him, and he said that we're within, I want to say, a quarter mile from that location to the high school, right? Maybe a little more, half mile. But he said they could do transmission lines and actually provide power to the high school. Now, that would be amazing to me, where we could take something like a brownfield and really repurpose it for saving the county and the school board a tremendous amount of money. And the idea of subsidizing our senior and probably at-risk communities, I think that's another great way that we can give back, and it ties in with AARP, meeting our needs, serving that population. So I'm excited about that. Thank you, Sam, for bringing that up. Planned vehicle replacement, we've been talking about it. It's long overdue. I can't wait to see the document. If you're sending a form out, maybe get the other departments to agree on the template so it all kind of looks the same in uniform, so when he gets it, he doesn't have to recraft it, even though we know he's an Excel genius. And I really want us, to come up with a vehicle necessity, and I understand we could have 40 vehicles in our fire station. That's still 150 vehicles that potentially are going home, or maybe not going home, or going wherever else. And we're footing the bill for personal use vehicles. I know we talked about this years ago, but I want to make sure we're being wise, with our resources, because there's a lot of needs that are going to come up, and I don't want it to be every week or every month we got a new vehicle purchase, 'cause I think we've been buying a vehicle every month. Feels like it. And then the other thing, I just want to say thanks to the team that rapidly responded to the road. That was impressive. We got a picture one day, and then it was like finished. Y'all are better than Walmart and fast food. That was amazing. So really, thank you to the team that did that, because that road could have potentially hurt a lot of people. So again, thank you to everybody that made that happen.
Mr. Kitchen?
I got two things, Chairman. One of them is the annual community-wide cleanup. It's about that time. I've been asked several times that we need to do this more than once a year, and we always say we are, and then we wait around till Great American Cleanup to do it again. So it's that time of year again, and hopefully we can do it more than once. But right now it looks like April 4th is going to be our best date to do it, which is a Saturday. After that, we start getting into Easter, Mother's Day, the Civil War days, Clinton War days, and then you start getting into 150-degree days. So I seen them frown there, Commissioner.
I'm scheduled for the April Fool's Day ride with my cycling team in Milledgeville. It's okay. I'll throw a bag in early.
I hear you. This year we're going to partner with more people, and so we're talking about having a tire amnesty day where we'll have a roll off up there and take up to working with Tiffany. She's getting all the environmental regs on everything that we can do, and so our plan is to get 5 or less from residents. If you got more than 5, you're going to have to show an ID and proof of residency, so that we're just trying to eliminate businesses bringing tires in and using us to take them off for them. The other one is our regular cleanup, and then a shredder day so that people are able to shred documents. And then one other that we're going to add this year is Joe with Gray Computers has offered to work with us on bringing in electronic devices. So that would be no cost to us at all, and the board already approved some money for the tire amnesty. But Gray Computers will take our electronic devices, and they will literally haul them away for us and pull what they can for scrap out of them and discard the rest of it. So that's another opportunity we have for recycling and cleanup for that day. So April 4th, same as before. We'll start 8 or 9 in the morning and finish at lunchtime at the Knox Center. The second part is not so much fun stuff. Last night I attended a listening session. I'd gotten several calls from residents in Juliet, and as y'all may have heard, there's somewhat of an issue in Monroe County with ash ponds and contaminated water and this and that. So did a lot of research on it, met with people and talking. We've got some real valid concerns for Jones County residents that are right across the river from where these ash ponds are. And long story short, the Altamont River Keepers was testing some wells on the Monroe County side. I think Georgia Power was testing some immediately around their pond sites. Once they get to that point, until there's an agreement made, nobody seems to be testing any more than what they have tested. Monroe County has, I read an article that Monroe County is stepping up to the tune of about $10,000 to help residents that are just outside of what the Riverkeeper zone is, or the Georgia Power zone is, because there's a legitimate concern that these people they're finding contaminated wells on that area, and the next people over are going, well, what about ours? How do we know we're not drinking bad water? How do we know we don't need to be having bottled water and all this stuff? So there's some real issues, and best I can tell, there's about 11 wells on the Jones County side. They're within a 2-mile radius of what I call the hot zone, where they've found contaminated wells. They have tested 3, basically they've tested 3 on the Jones County side that did not reach the levels of contamination that they said. And so therefore they're not going to test anymore. I heard their concerns, and I just think about if it were my well, and they asked if there was a way that the county could help, would offset some of the cost of having the wells tested in that 2-mile radius. So I've talked to EPA, I've talked to the Riverkeepers executive directors, and contacted a couple of testing companies around, the third-party testing companies. There is a company out of Norcross that would do it, and it's totally third-party. So I'd like to get a consensus. I know that it wasn't on the agenda to vote. I think it's something we need to do immediately. There's probably a 3-week turnaround, and the residents know that there's some turnaround between getting the sample, getting it to the lab, and there's about a 2-week. It's called a 5-day hold, so that they have to test them on a 5-day basis, and it's about a 2-week turnaround to get the test results back. So we do know that there's some time involved with getting all that done. So I think if we could get a consensus to move forward and start doing it, we could vote on the dollar amount and budgeting the money at the next meeting, I think, if that's.
So what
Consensus
would
to
be
put it
the
on the
cons-
agenda at the,
Oh,
you've asked a
I
consensus to put
get-
it on the agenda at the next
Put it on
meeting.
the agenda at the next meeting, but maybe a directive from the chairman to ask the county administrator to
get
start,
information.
yeah, to go ahead and
that's
start
fine.
Right.
getting the ball rolling, because if we wait to vote 2 weeks from now, then we're 18 days from that. We're still a
Well, in
month
2
and a half
weeks, y'all
out.
at least need to know the cost associated
Right.
with it from the company out of Norcross or
Right.
wherever, so that you have the information to be able to vote on.
And I have sent them, what we're waiting on right now, I have sent them the number of wells and that they're residential wells and this and that. What I need is, and I'm getting this information from the Riverkeepers maps that show exactly where these wells are located, so that's gonna have a little bit of play in the cost. Are they driving, way back in there to get a test or whatever? So I've got a lot of information to them, so I'm waiting on some cost estimates, that kind of stuff. But I just feel really strong that their legitimate fear is we don't know what we're drinking right now, and we don't know. If we knew today what was bad, we'd buy bottled water, or we'd have water brought in. So I just know if it were my well, I'd want it tested, and I'd do whatever to test it. But some of them are, since there's several of them in that area, they've asked that the county could assist in some way.
Right. It's consensus to ask the
To get the
administrator,
information.
at least get the information for our next meeting, so know what we're looking at.
I will say this: everything that I'm seeing now, we're talking less than $3,000 or $4,000 for all of it. I don't see it being any more than that, just based on what I've. There was one lady at the meeting that had her well tested through the Riverkeepers, and I think she said theirs was like 350. I've talked to some independent testing agencies that said they're only testing for the one contaminant, which is hexavalent chromium. And if we're only testing for that, the ones closer to the ash ponds are testing for 10 or 12 different contaminants, everything from lead to metals and all that came from the industry side of it, not just the contaminant in the ground. So I don't think, we don't have that fear because we're on the other side of the river. We have the fear of the contaminants getting in the water table. And if you know anything about that area up there, down to 60 feet is your water table, and after that you're in rock. And so everybody's got a very shallow water table up there along the river. So that makes it easier to contaminate from groundwater seeping into the wells. So,
Like if consensus, we'll put it on the next meeting's agenda and have Mr. Risner having some numbers that we can all look at. Okay with you, Commissioner Martin?
Yes, I'm going to ask a silly question, the legal basis for county on private property.
I think we're, Monroe County's able to do it. I think we're just gonna pay for a third-party analyst of the sample. So
Right.
we won't go on the property and take the sample. I think it's paying for the testing of it, a third-party testing
Right.
of the water.
And I was just curious what they use. I mean, I'm all for taking care of our citizens. I got sewer, water in my district, so I appreciate what the county's done. I'm just making sure that we're okay so we don't have any challenges.
Yeah, and I think that gives us time too, that our counselor can maybe we can reach out to Monroe County and see how they're doing it. I'm sure they vetted it if they advertised that they were spending $10,000 on testing it, so.
They're also looking at running water into Juliet too, as one of the solutions, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the $20 million solutions.
Well,
Okay.
It's a hot topic.
Yeah, we'll put it on the next
Big,
agenda.
No
All right.
pun intended.
All right, if there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you.